a brand new day. And we'll be making history. Are you with me? Won't you stay?
Welcome to Elevating Lives. I'm Charles Evdos, Executive Director of Rise Life Services. And today my guest is John Pfeifer. He's the Assistant Executive Director of LifeWorks Residential Programs. And John, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here, Charles. Thank you for having me.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, John.
Well, I am the Assistant Executive Director at LifeWorks. I oversee the residential and clinical services there. I'm part of the leadership team that helps steer the organization in accordance with its mission. I've been there for 20 years, and I've been in the field of supporting people with developmental disabilities throughout Long Island for over 30 years.
Wow, that's great. Tell me a little bit about LifeWorks, what they do, where they provide services. What's their forte?
Okay, well, I'm happy to say that this year we celebrated our 50th anniversary. Our organization was founded by Victoria Schneps-Eunice. She, working with Geraldo Rivera, who actually did a very significant expose of the Willowbrook State School 50 years ago. He had jumped the fence and got into Willowbrook. Victoria Schneps had, her daughter was there at the time, and Geraldo did an expose that revealed really horrific conditions for people that we know need better services than that. And at the time, Geraldo had said, I can show you with my camera what it looks like, and you can listen to the sounds, but how do I describe the smell? And what he was in essence saying that these deplorable conditions are not fit for a human being to be in. At that time, Victoria, with a number of women, had gotten together in her house and formed, at the time, what was called the Working Organization for Retarded Children. Now, you and I know, Charles, we don't use that word, and we've changed that to WORC. And when we changed to WRC, people thought we were a radio show or a TV show. So we since changed it to Life's Work. Right. And after that expose that Geraldo did 50 years ago, we opened our first group home in Little Neck, Queens. And we're honored to say that it's the Geraldo Rivera home. Since that time, we have 45 group homes across Long Island, stretching from Manhattan all the way out to St. James. We also have other non-residential services, 7-day habilitation programs. We have in-home services, ComHab services, applied behavior analysis services, services for parents and children. So we've grown quite a bit in our 50 years, and I'm pleased to say I'm glad that you came out that night in support of our organization. Partnerships such as this is important for our people. So that's a little bit about Life's Work.
No question. I remember when my daily news days many years ago, I interviewed Geraldo about the psychiatric centers throughout New York. And it's really outstanding, really terrible, I should say, how it started off nice with the right thoughts and having the right staffing and so forth, and then budget cuts started.
Yes.
And services went from excellent down to horrific.
Yes.
And it's sad, and unfortunately we're seeing that today with the budget cuts that New York State implemented, 12, 13 years ago, where there was no COLA, no increase, keep cutting, and it really affected the industry.
Well, you know, that is exactly what happened on Staten Island with Willowbrook. It had set out with all the best intent. It was actually called a Rehabilitation Institute at the time, and it sounded wonderful going into this rural part of the state to receive services for your developmentally disabled child at the time. And what had happened was this was a facility that was supposed to support approximately 3,000 people. Well, in the end, when Geraldo had done that expose, there were 5,000 people living there. So over census, 2,000 people over census. And the governor at the time, Nelson Rockefeller, was slashing Medicaid funding. He was slashing the funding. So what did we have? We had increased census with decreased funding, a recipe for disaster. Right. And sadly, what are we seeing now in our times? We're seeing autism on the rise. We're seeing greater cases of mental health issues in society. And what's happening? The government is cutting, funding for these type of services. It's the same circumstance that led to Willowbrook. And that's why people like you and I come together to advocate for people with developmental disabilities, people with mental health issues, because this can't happen again. It can't happen again. That was a foretelling, and we need to learn from that circumstance and join together throughout the island to make sure that that never happens again. Not in one large institutional setting, or not in any group home setting or any program that we run.
Right. I mean, the sad part is, because there were no increases over that 10 to 12 period, the direct care workers really were affected. I mean, right now they average anywhere from $15 to $17 an hour, but they can get a job at Starbucks or Home Depot making $20, $22 an hour.
Right.
And without any certifications or CPR or skip training, it's just mind-boggling that they're not treated as professionals. And that's what they are, and they should be treated as professionals.
Right. That's an absolute shame. As you well know, our direct support professionals are the backbone of Rise Life Services and Life's Work. They are our life's blood, and I can't say enough about them. The work that they do day in, day out, sometimes very difficult, through all hours of the night, 24/7. All of our programs our residential programs are staffed 24/7, and that means throughout the pandemic, throughout any storm that we've had, Superstorm Sandy, any blizzard that we've had, our staff are there. And they deserve more than that basic wage. And, we need to advocate for them, and people need to know that this field should be a career path for people. It shouldn't just be a job. There should be something that you come into this field and there's promise and there's promotion, and it's a job that you could be proud of and that you can support a family on. And unfortunately, that's not the case. And we need to continue to advocate, to lobby those politicians who make those decisions to bring the funding, into this field so that these people that do this beautiful work are properly, financially compensated for it, and we draw in more people. There's a labor shortage out there, Charles. You know it, and I know
Absolutely. Right now, it's terrible.
Yeah.
No question.
And we need to be competitive. And I used to name all the places that pay more, and I refuse to give them the free promotion. But the big box stores, the overnight delivery services, all those different places, they are paying more for jobs that that aren't taking care of a human life.
Right.
We have human lives in our care when they're sick and when they're scared and when they're frustrated, but also when they're happy and elated, and we take them wonderful places. It's a beautiful job. They should be compensated more for the work that they do.
No, absolutely. And even during the pandemic, when a house would be hit with COVID, they'd be there 24/7 for 2 weeks.
Yes.
I mean, the work they put into helping the individuals in our programs, and this was throughout New York State, and that's the part that really bothers me, that, hey, New York, don't forget these essential workers. And they weren't treated like essential workers. That's the part that angers me.
No.
They, and they deserve to be treated like essential workers and get reimbursed at a proper salary. Because especially living on Long Island, you would need to make a great salary just to survive.
Right.
And some of our individuals work 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet, and it's sad.
Right. And they were essential workers during that time. Right. When the pandemic hit, these are people who went in and literally put their lives in danger. The vaccine wasn't out at that time. Right. So they were working, and we knew that COVID was around them, and they were in precautionary quarantines, each home, as you well know, as instituted by OPWDD.
Right.
Remember, again, the state imposed upon us various restrictions of kind of being in lockdown. Some was well thought out, and some was, created some hardship for us. To who went in? The essential worker, the DSP, the managers, the registered nurses went in there, our clinical staff, and all of our administrators, everybody pitching in, putting their lives on the line to take care of another life. Right. And how beautiful is that, to take care of another life? They put their lives on the line and then went home to their families, potentially exposing them. These people deserve, greater recognition and a greater wage. I know you celebrate them, and I celebrate them.
No question.
And that's why we find ourselves always aligned, always, mission-driven, with a common purpose. And, when I think, every time we meet, the conversation always goes in the same direction, looking out for the people that we support and the workers who do that. And despite our geographical differences, we being a little bit more west and you being out here, we join in a partnership for a common cause to support those people and to take care of our staff.
No question. And advocating is definitely a big piece of it. I know the governor Hochul would like to, is infusing a lot of dollars into the budget this year
Yes.
to say thank you to our staff and so forth. But my fear is that in 2 years, when the money dries up from the federal money they receive, we go back to where we used to be.
Yes.
And that's a big concern for me. And I think New York State's got to start planning for that and say, hey, look, we have a budget of X amount of dollars for this population. We have to keep it up, no question.
Right. So, you and I have been in this industry for some time, and we've seen those cuts. And, I try not to get political, but how can I not? The previous administration in New York State was not kind to people with developmental disabilities. We incurred cut after cut after cut, and that's just not fair. Fortunately, the governor in place right now is seemingly more favorable and being more generous, as is the federal government.
Right.
But you and I know well enough, the government giveth and the government taketh away.
That's
And
so
why
true.
taketh away? We can't afford that anymore.
No.
What you give, keep in place, and tactfully I say, give more. Give more, because we are underfunded in many senses of the word. So, there was a lot of money given out because of the pandemic, rightfully so, to those direct care workers. They will get additional pay incentives this year, but why just this year? Why not every year? Why not next year? And so we worry, will this be cut? This good fortune this year, will this be cut? And we just can't stand for that. We need to keep this going and make sure that our people are properly compensated to draw people in and sustain what's already in existence.
I mean, the sad part with inflation being at 7% or 8%, I forget what the new numbers are, but we give them a 5% raise, they're still in the hole.
They are.
Because of the inflation. It's sad.
Right. And then, just thinking of inflation, operating costs. I mean, we operate 45 homes that have 45 different utilities in there. The need to purchase food and to drive out and get those foods and to be out in the community for recreational events, or the cost of recreational events has increased. The price of gas has increased. But even the upkeep of our homes, we pride ourselves, as I know do you, Charles, to, we want to have the nicest house on the block. That's the goal for Life's Work. Vicki Schneps would say we are the Tiffany of services. And if you know Vicki, as I know you do, that rings true within our organization. We want to be the nicest house on the block. So that costs, money for landscapers and various vendors to come in and keep the paint and the upkeep and the fences up and stuff. All those expenses have dramatically increased. The price of a 2x4, the price of a piece of plywood has tripled.
2x4.
Right.
Yeah.
It's true. So all development and all restoration is another expense. So, that's why we need to, the government and the funding needs to keep pace, with the economy. And unfortunately, that has not always been the case. And
I know. And unfortunately, most of the agencies are not-for-profit 501c3s.
yes.
But it's not you can't make money not-for-profit. You need to make money to cover up these expenses.
Correct.
Because 80% of our budget, and my agency, goes to salaries.
Right.
So it gives you only 20% to pay electric, heat, whatever the OTPS category is.
Right.
It's not much there. And it gets, we have to do fundraising. That helps a little bit. But the budgets need to be increased without a doubt. And my hope is that New York State will come to the plate this year.
Well, that's what we hope. And, to talk about, having money readily available, you need to have money in reserve, too, for emergencies like the pandemic.
Absolutely.
Now, we were fortunate that, the 3P loans were made available to many providers. Some took advantage of it, some did not. But that was until the latter part of 2020. When the pandemic hit, You needed to go out and buy protective equipment,
Right.
and you needed to perhaps buy additional mattresses. There was a whole bunch of different things that we were creating, alternate living spaces and so on. Well, it needed money to do that. If you're just getting by as an organization and you just have enough capital to exist, what are you going to do, God forbid, the next pandemic strikes, Superstorm Sandy or something else befalls the island?
Right.
So just making enough just to cover the bills and to pay staff just enough doesn't cut it. We're not asking for lucrative increases here, but something to sustain, what we all have in place as providers, and to give a proper wage for people who do some of the best work on Long Island at Rise Life and also at Life's Work.
No question. Tell a bit more about yourself, your career.
So, one of the things I'm proud to say is I started out as a direct support professional. That's very important so that you can understand, what all of your employees are going through. And I'd like to think that, the people at Life's Work know that I understand from the very, very basic elements of care to where I find myself as an executive now. I started in a small agency on Long Island that was Plus Group Homes, quite honestly, at the time. And I started as a DSP, rose to management. I worked at DDI and honed my clinical skills there. They had a wonderful program for people with autism, and moved into administration there. I have also been out at IGHL working in a day habilitation capacity. So for me, I started in residential. I learned day habilitation, and then 20 years ago when I had come to Life's Work, I'd moved into the clinical department. So it was always a method to my madness of residential, day, and clinical to get a full complement of all the services that a person needs, because I want to be prepared. I want to be prepared in the event of emergency and how to help families. We're speaking quite a bit about, about the people that we support and our employees, but it's the families. I think that, one of the things that I find dear to me is, I know you do too. We sit down, we talk to many families on Long Island about their hardships. Here I am talking about an organization that was founded by families, women in the living room, because of what is their plight. And I realize that we have a responsibility not only to the families that are within the agency, but the people who want to get in. There's a lot of people right now living at home, looking to get into group homes, families that call me with great regularity, looking to get into a home. And we, as providers, have a responsibility to them as well. So I, in my career, have tried to be as well-rounded as I can, so that I can, address any situation that comes before me within Life's Work and as a provider, a premier provider on Long Island.
No, that is great. I know many times I get phone calls or people ask me, Charlie, I have a child that has cerebral palsy or development. What do I do? What do I, And we created a helpline, 1-855-RISE-LIFE, where they can call in 24/7, where we will guide them. If we can't provide the services, we will direct them to the right place. And it's been very successful, and it's working because pick yourself having a child that has autism, or you don't know what to do,
right,
and you don't know where to go. And there's so many services that are helpful, and that's my job and your job is to help, and that's what we try to do.
Well, that's a wonderful thing about your organization, the community outreach, because community outreach is very important. It's what brings us together today. There is, as we speak about the budget, money being put into, as you well know, self-directed budgets, and many families looking to see, can we do non-certified homes? That's been quite the talk for the past couple of years. If I can't get into a group home, that's a certified, can we come together as families? And people are doing that now. The same way that Vicki did it in her living room with her women together, many families are coming together and looking at the self-directed opportunities there. But that's a tough road for them. I've explored that with them, and right now we have a wonderful commission. I have a lot of faith in the new OPWDD commissioner, that she is committed to diverting more funds to self-direction and non-certified residences, something that we're going to have to explore more. I know LifeWorks as an organization to look into different housing models. Listen, we're both people-centered organizations. It's what the people need. It's not just what the system provides. And that's sometimes what you find yourself in. The opposite of person-centered is system-centered. I can only provide what the system gives me. We have to be person-centered. We have to look at the people. What do they need? And these are people who deserve to live in the communities that they want to live in, with housemates that they choose, and get support in doing that. So as we both support the community together, I anticipate that, that will be, more opportunistic, in the years ahead.
No, definitely, this population wants the same thing you and I want. They want to decide, what do I want for breakfast? What am I going to do today? And that's the importance. Aging out has been a major issue for New York State.
Yes.
We have these young kids that are now graduating high school and college or whatever, and there's not enough housing out there for them. And the self-direction is, I guess, a good step. But managed care is also going to be a potential problem.
Yeah.
In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah. So just a little bit about the aging out. The four last group homes that LifeWorks had opened up were for people who aged out. They were young people, primarily with autism, coming out of children residential programs and moving into homes of their own, which is a beautiful thing. And that's what many of the awards that are out there exist right now. But there are families whose children, were not in children residential programs. They stayed at home. And now those children in their 30s or sometimes 40s looking for placement. Right. And it's scary when they consider non-certified housing, because it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, as we like to say, and all the safeguards and protective oversight as a certified organization. And we're trying to bridge that gap there somewhat. But just one other thing about development as we look at these age-out opportunities. Real estate isn't cheap. So in all of this
So
inflation,
right.
We do have, LifeWorks has awards from OPWDD to continue in the path of residential development. But the cost of housing is astronomical. Yet they haven't increased the reimbursement rate for what you get for purchasing a home.
No,
so that stays the same, yet the real estate market is through the roof. Hopefully it will come down. So right now it's hard for us to buy a home, and so there's challenges everywhere. I like to be optimistic. I see some positive things, and I have faith. I have faith in the people of Long Island. I have faith of the employees that we have in both of our organizations and our donors. I mean, I can't say enough. I know that we rely heavily on donations. Rise Life Services and LifeWorks have tremendous people behind us who come out whenever we have barbecues and whenever we have galas and wonderful things that your organization does to bring people together. We rely on those people to bridge that gap. So community involvement is critical in so many ways, whether it's residential development, helping those families at home, or bringing donors in. That's a critical a need for both organizations as well.
No, definitely. We need to advocate. Mm-hmm. It's not only the agencies, but it has to be the families too.
Yes.
Unfortunately, what happens? A family, stay in the house. They get older. They can't take care of the child anymore, mm-hmm. and then they panic. It's got to be thought out in a delicate process mm-hmm. that'll be beneficial for the individual and for the families and for the sites that they go into. It takes time and effort to do that, and it's hard to find the right fit sometimes.
Yes. So look, I realize that the state is also trying. So as critical as I am of them, I realize that they're trying to find solutions, but sometimes those solutions are slow to unravel, and it's usually the private sector and the providers that come to the solution first, and then they adopt it. That was the pandemic.
Right.
Everything that we figured out in the spring of 2020, the state adopted in the summer of 2020, with all due respect. We were a bit ahead of the curve, and that will probably be the solution for development as well. But I want to bring up another thing that we need help from the community, and that's employment opportunities for the people that we support. the people living in our homes, the people attending our rehabilitation programs. They need jobs. Here we are talking about a workforce shortage, yet we both in our organizations have many people that are learning the trades to get employment on Long Island, to be able to help out. And we need community organizations to partner with us to open their doors and tell us what you need. So if you need somebody on some type of assembly or production, or you need somebody else to do some other type of service, let us know, teach us. We'll work on those skills in our rehabilitation programs, and we'll be a pipeline to your workforce. So community partnership is critical even in the business sector. So a lot of work that we have to do to
No
get
question,
results.
John. And it takes a dedicated, member of our staff, ourselves. I mean, you got to have a special breed of person that likes to do this.
Yep.
John, I'd like to thank you for being on our show.
It's been a
And
pleasure.
I look forward to working with you in the future. And again, our helpline is 855-RISE-LIFE. So you'll see a little commercial at the end. Thank you, everybody, for joining our show, and have a great day.
Rely on one another, feel the pride, let's show